Welcome to Mallett and Michelle on Dripping Springs with me, Steve Mallett, and fashion icon Michelle Lewis. Get so sick of people telling you how good you look in our pictures and everybody just making fun of me.
I'm sorry. My fan base
You're
is
not
much longer.
sorry. There is no sorry.
My fan base is much bigger than you. I actually have a president of a fan club. We have T-shirts.
Oh, shut up.
I have appearances.
Autographs.
Autographs. You screwed up my my little thing I was going to say about you. You know what a large group of people is called in your world?
A crowd.
A no thanks.
No thanks. I'm going to stay at home. Tonight's wash my hair night.
Okay, well, that should take all of 2 minutes.
It does.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Our guest coming on.
Yeah, Cassidy Sullivan. She's a speech language pathologist. I can say that 3 times fast. Pathologist turned micro-Christian school owner.
Ooh.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, they moved here from California and started this Christian school. So we're going to hear all about that. And I don't know if Christian schools, are they considered a charter school?
I guess so. I think they would.
Yeah, either that or it's a form of homeschooling.
Well,
but Cassidy will fill us in on that.
I think it would, because I think there's many different types of charter schools.
Yeah, the governor of Texas is talking about calling a special session because they're trying to pass this voucher thing, which would allow people to send their kids to charter schools, and school choice is being talked about across the country right now. You know, people are taking their kids out of public schools for all kinds of reasons. And, you know what some of them are, but the most common one, I think, is that a lot of parents feel like there's more focus on social issues than skills.
Than education.
Yeah. And the schools that are in the poorer areas, the more poverty-stricken areas, those schools are performing the worst. I mean, been some schools that are, there was one school where, I think it was in Dallas that only like 13% of the kids were qualified to graduate.
Oh,
Did you hear about that?
No, that's horrible.
Yeah, these are public schools. So, there's a lot of people that want to take their kids out of school for a number of different reasons, but some kids don't do well in a traditional school environment.
No, I think that there's different models of education out there for a reason, but the whole commonality of it should be education.
It should be focused on the kids getting the best
social
education.
justice.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
It needs to be that. Well, there's an article in the Wall Street Journal from last week that the Stanford Center for Research on Education Outcomes, which the acronym is CREDO, tracked school outcomes for 15 years and compared charter school outcomes to public school outcomes. And this research showed that most charter schools, this is quotes from this report, most charter schools produce superior student gains despite enrolling a more challenging student population. And charter schools provide their students with stronger learning when compared to traditional public schools. And so that's a Stanford study. That's not just some, wacko homeschooler that's trying to push some agenda. That's a reputable school district.
Wacko homeschoolers.
Well, you know what I mean. Somebody that's got a TikTok with 150 followers.
Well, I think also that especially when you're on a limited income, but you still want what's best for your child and their education and how that child learns, their style of learning, that you should be given a choice, and it should and money should not be a factor. If one particular school works better for your child than another, that's why we moved here to Dripping Springs, because my oldest was dyslexic, and I just felt like a larger, AISD was failing in that sense, and I needed a smaller class size, and now that's not necessarily the case in DSISD. But
yeah, I know. Well, the states that had the least. So comparing the charter schools to the public schools, the states that were the top of the choice or top of the list in terms of the public schools were performing much worse compared to the charter schools: New York, Illinois, and Washington State. And well, yeah, there's a theme there. There always is, right? There was a study from 2009 that reported that charter schools performed more poorly than public schools, and that's often cited by teachers' unions to fight against public funding for charter schools, which I think the unions, the the teachers unions, the education unions, the public employee unions, they're not really for education anymore. They're more about just taking care of their employees and getting them more money.
Yeah.
I mean, almost every teacher's great and they're all trying really hard, but there's some bad teachers out there. And I think all teachers shouldn't be paid the same amount. I think good teachers should make more and bad teachers shouldn't make as much. But
yeah, it is interesting when you look at how little teachers do get paid comparative to how much the schools take in.
Yeah, I know.
And so I know there's a lot of people who have been teachers who have left the profession.
Yeah. Well, what Coach Kane was telling us that a lot of teachers, they just count down the days until they're able to retire.
Well, yeah, but if you think about that's your place of employment, right? And if the parents are just about as sick and tired of not being able to educate, I wonder how the teachers are feeling too.
I know. But, we've all had some really fantastic teachers over the years, and they should be paid more than I think a teacher that's just barely getting by, just checking in and out every day.
I agree.
But it's going to be interesting to see what happens with the school voucher thing at the Texas legislature. And, I think we need to be open to some of these alternate education resources for kids that are falling through the cracks. This Black and Hispanic kids have the largest gains in this study that show that minority kids advance more than traditional school peers. Yeah, I think that's a good reason to consider charter schools.
Well, I think we're all seeing now the repercussions of the virtual and online schooling that kind of happened, and a lot of these kids that are struggling, they needed one-on-one instruction in person. You know.
Yeah.
So I have a kind of on the piggyback of that a little bit. I saw this quote. I thought it was funny. I thought of you too. Steve, we should have a national quiet day where everyone shuts up for 24 hours.
Maybe we should have a national quiet month.
That's true. I want to talk about decency, decorum, etiquette, just kind of like...
God, those are words from the past nowadays.
Isn't that the truth?
Unfortunately.
I kind of looked like what happened in the news of the last couple of weeks. There was an incident at the White House where someone showed their chi-chis. Why did someone think that was okay?
What is wrong with the world?
We have a senator that dresses in hoodies and basketball shorts that shows up. Yeah. I don't understand where all of that has kind of gone. And, decency, on one hand, it can refer to like your moral and ethical principles. Mm-hmm. But there is like the whole, I guess it's Maya Angelou to quote her, when you know better, you do better.
Sure.
It's like, come on. We were talking about being on an airplane and people wearing pajamas and.
Yeah. When I was a kid, you used to get on the airplane. That was a long time ago, but you used to get on an airplane and you would get dressed up. You would, put on your best clothes. It was like going to church. It wasn't like you just, people now look like they're going to bed. They don't look like they're flying across the country.
I know. Well, this decency, it spans across all religions, cultures, societies, ethnic backgrounds. So there's no kind of excuse. I remember my brothers, when we were kids, they would burp and they would say, well, in other countries, that's just saying in this house, you're going to get hit with a shoe is what's going to happen.
Or a shovel.
A shoe or a shovel. But it's also tied to moral integrity, right? It's being honest, your fairness, basically doing what is right, even when no one is watching.
Well, yeah, we talked about that last week. I think that virtue, which was very important when I was growing up, that virtue is out the window. People now are like, oh, I can get away with it. And that's a bigger topic, but I think that is part of, there seems to be multiple levels of accountability in this country from a legal standpoint, right? There are some people that get the whole book thrown at them, and there are other people that seem to get away with everything.
Yeah.
So now when the rule of law seems to be very unevenly applied, then everybody thinks they should just be looking for ways to get away with things, not for always looking to do the right thing.
Well, there are teachable and learnable moments, right? When I was a kid, my grandmother, believe it or not, and I wasn't a flunky and I didn't fail out. I actually went to Miss Manners etiquette school and I learned like what fork to use, what, knife, or, when you're sitting down as a lady, how you crossed your legs, how you were supposed to get up. And my brother also had to go as far as like opening the door. You are very minded in that sense that I've always noticed you will not, if you are walking with somebody else, you will always let the person that's older or a female walk in front of you, which that's something that was probably burned into your head. But that is such a lost art nowadays. And I don't know. I just think it's having an impact on a society or, as a whole. And we have the potential, everyone has the potential to create positive change, either within yourself or around you. And I just don't think people are trying anymore. And it's kind of indicative of what's kind of going on.
Well, if you think about, we've talked about it on the show before, there's a movement to attack masculinity. So there are people out there that if they saw me opening the door for somebody, would say, well, why are you doing that? That person can open that door for themselves. And it's like, yeah, well, that's not the point. The point is, I'm just doing that to be polite, to show them that I respect them and that I just want to do something for them.
Well, there's also a movement to erase women totally. So there is the the erasing of women.
Touching on some third rails.
Yeah.
Here.
So yeah, I guess any type of classic or traditional gender roles are trying to be vanished.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I just think when like I said earlier, when you know better, you do better, and just try harder. If you wrong somebody, go to that person and like
apologize. Yeah,
like, hey, man, I'm sorry, I misunderstood the situation, or I was just a jerk.
We all need to get along. You can't carry this stuff with you forever.
You and I were talking about that the other day. I was like, it's one thing to be accountable to your family, right? Because you can blow them off, but yours and my working relationship over almost 10 years now, it's been nice to be accountable to somebody that will call you out on your stuff, right?
Hey, by the way, when we're done, I need to talk to you.
Yeah. Good luck with that. Yeah. Are you going to feed me first?
Yeah, right.
That always brings me stress whenever you say that. Hey,
I don't do it very much anymore.
Do you have time to sit down? I want to talk to you about something.
Yeah, but nowadays I creep up on you. I'm like, hey, Michelle, you want to go to lunch? And then we sit down and I'll go, hey, you know what? We need to talk about this.
It stresses me out.
And we don't do it very much anymore.
No, it stresses me out. I don't like.
We've figured out a lot of things over the years.
I don't like to argue, even though I'm a very argumentative person by nature. I just don't like to argue because it just makes.
You're a dive bomber. Do you know what that is?
No.
You're like, you don't want to have an argument. You want to come in and throw a great big bomb and then leave.
Oh, that's okay. I'm a dive bomber.
That's what you are. You're like, okay, mic drop. Boom. I'm out of here.
Kapow.
Yeah. You remember that big storm we had a couple weeks ago that came in on a Friday night with all the hail and lightning and rain?
It was 4 o'clock in the morning.
You remember. Yeah.
I was up because my yard was being washed into my first world problem pool.
It was June 10th, I guess. And yeah, it was a doozy. I slept pretty good through it, but it did wake me up a couple times. Did you know that 4 houses were struck by lightning? Actually, more houses than that, but 4 houses wigh struck by lightning and caught on fire from that storm? In North House County.
We had 2 people that we know. One of them in High Point. Their house got struck by lightning, and it took out all of the electrical. Everything.
So that's one of the houses. So the North Hayes County Fire Department had one of their guys, a fire chief, I guess, commented on this. They had so many calls during that or after that storm that they had to call in extra units from Wimberley, Kyle, Buda, and EMS services from San Marcos.
Oh, just from the lightning strikes?
Mm-hmm. From the lightning strikes that came through town and all the stuff that happened.
I was having a baby shower that very next morning. And so Todd was up like mowing the yard and cleaning the yard up at 6 o'clock in the morning because I had so many people coming for that baby shower. And then I remember during the baby shower, this lady that I didn't know, she goes, your pool shouldn't do that within 24 hours, like meaning because the pool was brown. And I said, no, that happened this morning when the rain came and our yard went into our pool. Sorry, no, we don't normally look like that.
Well, luckily during that storm, there were no deaths. There were these 4 residential fires and then another residential strike, which blew out all the electrical. There was the worst one was a house on Triple Creek Drive over here off of Fitzhugh Road, Triple Creek Ranch is. That one, the house was struck by lightning and the attic caught on fire. And I think the house is ruined because, they had to put the fire out. But luckily,
you know what?
That family, do you know them?
No, I heard this story. You know how I know this story? Because Bama Brown told me this story.
Is that
because
right?
Bama is renting one of the cottages that he built to them.
Oh, okay. Well, I was just going to say, luckily their church has really stepped up and is helping this family out. But
he said it made him feel really good that he was able to help a family like that.
Yeah.
So,
well, the lightning strikes are more common than people think. like we were talking about this a couple weeks ago, and I was wrong. You said something about that a bunch of houses burn down all the time, and I was like, no, it's not as common as you think. You just hear about it more, but it happens quite a bit. And
I like that you finally have admitted that you say stuff like that.
We're going to talk about that later.
We're at lunch.
Yeah,
Is there
that's
food
right.
involved?
Yeah. So the fire department recommends that that homeowners ensure their electrical systems are properly grounded and protected from power surges. That's the best way to protect your house during a lightning strike, and call an electrician.
What about a lightning rod?
Well, that's part of being grounded is make sure the house is properly grounded. You can put in a lightning rod would help do that, but an electrician can help you set
cool.
that up. I actually sold a house. God, it was 15 years ago in Hidden Springs Ranch. It was a new construction, and it was just about done. And the builder called me, and I went over there, and he said, well, the house got struck by lightning last night. And I was like, oh, what happened? And he said, well, nothing, but except for this. And he walked me into the master bedroom, and there's an outlet on the, at the bottom of the wall. And it looked like somebody had spray painted a black angel up on the wall. It was all this soot and smoke had come out of that outlet and then just stained the wall.
Haunted.
Like in a big fan up the wall. He's like, no, we'll just paint over it.
I don't think so.
No,
why did he even tell you? Like, if you're just going to hide it anyways, why did he even tell you?
Yeah, I said, well, obviously you can paint over it, but you still need to make sure that the electrical system in this house is safe and performing properly. I think he did actually eventually install a lightning rod, but
I told you at the time,
scary. My
brother and I were struck by lightning, right, on the trampoline.
You actually got struck. Well, that explains a lot, actually.
we were jumping on a trampoline, and a lightning. I almost must have been like 4 or 5 years old, and the lightning struck the trampoline and threw my brother and I off like 10 feet off the trampoline. Oh my gosh!
Well, you're lucky you weren't killed. But, well, if your house ever gets struck by lightning, you know for sure it did. Call 911 and get out of the house immediately. Because a lot of times it is not one of those fires that's like, the place catches on fire and all the alarms go off. It's like it goes in the attic, it starts a small fire, and it builds up and then takes over pretty quickly. So.
Oh, well, speaking of lightning, I wanted to say just a quick shout out. Happy birthday to Scotty Bennett.
Hey,
his birthday.
Happy birthday, Scotty.
June 22nd.
Good friend of ours.
Yes.
Very
he does our intro and outro.
Yep.
He has he does the intro and outro, but he works for Coke FM, and he has his
been a guest on the show.
Yeah, he's a great guy. We're going to Vegas with him. By the time this comes out, we've already gone to the
God bless Vegas.
Yeah, we go to Vegas and watch him gamble. But happy birthday, Scotty.
Happy birthday,
Scotty.
Happy birthday.
So a little bit of Dripping Springs news. Steve, the Dripping Springs, you're going to be out of town, but the H-E-B is opening finally July 5th. Grand opening ceremony is going to be on that day, and it's going to be opened every day from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. I'm very excited.
Yeah.
I think the Dripping Springs H-E-B is very excited also because I think they're ready to not have to have the overflow. Yesterday, I guess all of their freezers and everything were not, it was so hot that something got overloaded.
I think our downtown Dripping Springs is probably due for a little bit of an overhaul.
Yeah, maybe.
Think?
Yeah.
It's looking a little long in the tooth.
Just a little bit. Dripping Springs is also getting a bookstore.
Oh, really?
Yes, it's called the Sunday Bookshop. It's off of Ranch Road 12, 28101 Ranch Road 12. They're not going to have coffee and stuff, but they're going to have like little housewares and gifts and so on and so forth. It's opening June 22nd. Again, by the time this records.
What's it called?
Sunday Bookshop. The Sunday Bookshop. And one more little piece of Dripping Springs news. All the bonds that the restructured bonds that they did, work has already begun on these bonds. The portables at DSE, WSE, and SSMS have started. They are also doing an ADA ramp at DSE, or revamping the ramp, and repairs to the wastewater lines that definitely needed to be happening. So I guess you'll start to see some of your money at work with those new bonds.
Awesome.
But I'm sure school's out right now, so it's needed time to get all that stuff done.
Yeah, it is. Hey, I wanted to mention real quick, we went to, we had a Dripping Springs Elite Real Estate Professionals meeting at Summer Revival over there off of 290.
Oh, that is a cute
DEC.
place.
Yeah, Ian and Becky Atkins own that, and man, they're lovely people, and
their food is amazing.
Really
I want to go there for lunch today.
Oh, we're going to do that for lunch?
Yeah, let's do that for lunch. Yeah.
But yeah, shout out to them. And if you're new to town and you haven't been over there, they're not an advertiser, but that's a great place to go have lunch or a nice glass of wine.
Yeah, they're very lovely. And their bowls are delicious.
Yeah. Well, now my mouth's watering. Well, how about we take a little break and get Cassidy in here and hear about her micro-Christian school.
This portion of the show is brought to you by the Mallett Integrity Team of real estate professionals. They are based in Dripping Springs and bring you over 45 years of combined experience helping people reach their hill country real estate dreams. When you want the best in town, call them at 512-829-2062 or look them up at mallettintegrityteam.com. And now, here's Steve and Michelle.
Welcome back, Cassidy Sullivan, owner and founder of Edelwise Christian School.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for
so fun.
bearing through our technical difficulties this morning. Steve is in the fetal position in the corner right now.
Welcome to the show. That was traumatic. We had, 20 minutes of technical problems, and I appreciate your patience, Cassidy.
I'm proud of you. You kept your cool.
Oh, I did not.
Nobody would have known.
I kept the cool on the outside, but not on the inside.
He's sweating bullets.
Yeah, that's
At
right.
school, we would have gone to the calming corner.
Oh, can we do a
Oh,
call?
I need a calming corner. Yeah.
For sure. We're going to need, I always call it a nap room. I need a nap room. So tell me, what brought you here to Dripping Springs?
Dripping Springs. Let's see. So 2016, my husband and I, Sean, had our first son, and we are born and raised Southern California. And luckily, my husband had the flexibility to, with his work, we could go anywhere. We knew we were going to leave, so we had some options. We felt that going all the way to the East Coast was a little too far of a plane flight for visiting family and them coming to see us. So Colorado was an option. Austin was an option, and we came out and did a quick little 3-day trip. We drove over to Lakeway. We were just wanting to be close to downtown just to get used to the area.
You just picked up and moved with no family here?
We have no family here.
So you're just like, okay, come on.
How did you pick Dripping Springs, though?
Well, we landed in Austin. We were renting in Circle C. We came to love the area and knew we were going to stay. So we were going to purchase, and Dripping Springs was not even what it is today. So Headwaters was a new neighborhood. We remember looking at Calaterra and thinking like 10 minutes further, that's too far. And now it's like, let's go to Johnson City, even further. We're ready.
Everybody goes through that transition, I think. You
Absolutely.
get here to Dripping, and then the traffic hits you a little bit, and you're like, well, we could go further west.
Yes.
Further and further.
Yes. And we love going to Wimberley.
Well, you came here before the rush, before the gold rush.
the rush. Yes, ma'am. And so 2019, we moved to Drip in Headwaters. And even now our neighborhood is like 5 times the size.
Oh, yeah, it exploded. For sure.
We were ready. We love California, of course, and we love going back to visit. But we were just looking for a slower pace of life. Financially, we both got master's degrees and had that debt on our shoulders. And just we knew we wanted to move to a place where our kids could eventually also afford to be. We loved just being in nature, experiencing different weather, and just having a little bit
Oh, yeah, there's different weather.
I was
going to
say, yeah.
a little bit of cold and then hot again.
And some version of hell, which is what we're going through
Yes,
right now.
and if anyone would have warned me about the allergies, my allergies are debilitating. And so every year I'm like, oh, we got to move.
You know
And
what?
then,
A
like,
lot of
okay,
people
I'm good.
don't. Yeah, a lot of people don't get the allergies until they're been
2
here
years.
for
Yes.
like a couple years, like 5, 6, 7 years sometimes. So it's
creeps
already
up
hit
on
you.
you.
Yeah, it's already hit you.
It just a way of life. You just carry a box of tissues
You do.
everywhere.
Yeah.
And your eyes get all poofy and
My family's like, you sound sick. We can't come.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm not sick. This is how I live.
This is
so your training is in speech.
so you're a
cue.
speech. She's a speech pathologist.
Speech pathologist.
Speech pathologist, which is hard to say. And I was just going to ask you, can you explain to me why Michelle keeps massacring all her words? And then she did it. Perfect example.
I did. I make up words.
She's excited and she has all these wonderful thoughts.
She does.
I'm dyslexic.
It's
That's what I
happening.
revert. I just make things up. I say it, and I say it with such conviction that people believe.
Nobody even noticed.
And it is so entertaining.
Yes. My 2-year-old's doing it right now. It's like a language explosion. And he's my 3rd. So I haven't had any doing this. So it's so natural. But he is having all of these words. And he's I'm like,
So that's what it is,
hear
Michelle.
you.
You're like a 2-year-old.
It's exactly what it is. That's exactly.
You also felt the same.
Yeah.
You needed your calming corner.
That's
earlier,
right. That's right. I did.
need that calmness.
He
Yeah.
often needs a calming corner away from Michelle.
Yeah.
For sure. So is that what your master's degree is in?
Yes, ma'am. So from Southern California, went to college in Northern California, about 45 minutes below Sacramento and inland from San Fran. And
Is that San Luis Obispo?
no, it's called Stockton. So the University of the
yeah.
Pacific in Stockton. So it's this beautiful bricks building everywhere and not the safest town. But I went there declaring my major, and they have a really sweet 15-month master's program. So you're accelerated and getting all of that done quicker. Loved the program. I always knew I would work with kids. My degree has definitely equipped me to be in the place that I am now, working with little kids. So it's just been a blessing to work so closely with parents, and just becoming a mom as well. So having about 10 years of experience before having kids myself. So I love that background that I have.
So now you made the jump to you're the owner, director. What is your official title out there at the school?
I would say you said
Headmaster.
it earlier,
Yeah.
founder, headmaster. No. I know other schools will say head of school. And so when the parents or the kids are like, are you the principal?
Are you the manager?
Am I in trouble when I see you? It's like, I call myself the leader.
Oh, well,
I'm
that's
just
a good-
leading.
That's
Yes.
cool. I want to go back. I didn't get a chance to ask my question. You cut me off.
Oh, well, duh.
Yeah.
I can't hear you. The microphones don't work.
So you're a speech pathologist,
Yes,
and
sir.
that sounds really cool, but I actually don't know what that is. What is a speech pathologist?
I love that question. So, and it's speech language pathology. So when you say speech, I want you to think of the words that you're saying and your articulators and your teeth and your muscles. And then the language piece is receptive and expressive language. So I can, looking at different areas. If I was working in a public school district, we would assess kids. Maybe their teachers can understand them or their peers can understand them. So that's the speech side.
Okay.
And then the language piece it's impacting every sense of the word for learning. So reading, even writing language, having conversation. Right now, social is always a big one. So when your language skills are impacting your ability to interact with others in a group.
Do you do private tutoring lessons for 52-year-old women?
Just for you, sweet.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Please. Thank you very much.
I may need it.
Yeah.
I may need it.
When did you decide to open your school?
So it was during the summer when we were all at home, 2020, right?
2020.
What
Yes.
was going on in that time? Let me think. Okay. Yeah.
Unforgettable.
Yes.
Yeah.
But we were sitting on our couch, just as everyone concerned about our kids going to school. And I had little. So I think Clark was 4 and Faye wasn't even 2 yet. They were at Sunset Canyon Baptist Mother's Day Out, which I loved. And I was working a little bit at Little Tigers in town. And we were just unsure, is my almost 2-year-old supposed to go back to school and cover her face and be led by a teacher that's covering their face and sit in a carpet square away from a peer? And so we were hearing about the pods that were starting and just speaking with our small community of friends that all had similar aged children. We're like, what can we do? And so it started as a solution. I drove around town with the kids. We're looking for lease signs and calling and saying, what's the price on this? And it was just crunching numbers, right? It was like, if it's me and I'm teaching 2- and 3-year-olds and I could find another teacher to teach the pre-K age, and if we could pay the bills and have some fun and create some normalcy while instilling prayer and faith and, pride in our country. I just didn't want this stage to be a long, everlasting impact on their lives. And we've seen how it's affected the development of young children. So it started just as a solution. And now we're a full-blown program serving a ton of families in Dripping Springs.
That's pretty amazing. What has surprised you most about founding a school?
I think just what I love so much is touring families and seeing their face light up when I talk about what we're doing. And they're like, this is just what I've been looking for. Mm-hmm. And so when I'm weary and unsure of where is it that we're going, or we've, lost teachers here and there and just different seasons of their life, I question, is this still what you want for my life and my family? Is this what you're calling me to? And just meeting particular families and knowing that we can be an extension of home for these first years when kids are leaving their home, they're leaving their parents, and they're looking to build a relationship. So we're all about relational education, connection, and community for these families that are in one of the roughest stages. Their kids are little, they're barely sleeping. They need friends, and they need I also need that community. So I've also just been really filled up by leading and knowing that these families are also there for me and for my kids. So,
do you think some parents have been trained to just hand over their education to the public school system and not be involved in that?
And unknowingly.
Unknowingly, yeah.
Yes. When I interview teachers and families, I want to hear what is it that they're looking for their kids. And with teachers, one of the things that I say is, depending on the environment that they're coming from, we're all doing a lot of unlearning here. Mm-hmm. And are you able and willing to do that? Have you been doing this so long that, you want to continue what you've been doing? Because this is a place where we're kind of following the children and reinventing what they need right now.
That's very cool.
What do you hope that a child that goes to your school, if they either age out of the system or they go to another school, what do you hope is their main takeaway from your school?
I love that. Mostly that they're loved and cherished, and that they were created by God for a purpose, with purpose, and that I want to see them being able to advocate for themselves.
Oh.
And to know who they are and the gifts that God's given them, even when they're itty bitty.
Yeah.
That's very cool too. Yeah. I think there's too many people out there that just teaching their kids to just get in line, just follow the crowd, follow the herd. And that's not a path to a happy life, I don't think.
Absolutely. Well, we're so busy, right? And we're taking on things that just pack our schedule. And parents, whether what I was thinking of coming in just to hanging out with you guys, it's like what I've seen is that I'm not the school for everybody. Every family needs a different schedule. They want something different for their children. And I, as a people pleaser, I can't come into this business and say like, everybody come, see what we're doing. Yeah. Everybody needs something different. And sticking to our vision and our mission is what will continue to help us thrive and serve families.
So that was one of my questions. You don't accept everybody. You have to make sure it's a fit.
Absolutely, because we want, I've seen that when I can really prioritize my teachers, that the kids are happy and the parents are happy. Of course, if, we can navigate conflict together, but simply it's just not a fit for everyone, and no hard feelings there, but we want what's best for these kids.
Sure. Yeah. So what's that application process look like?
So we've been changing. So this will be our 4th school year, and I have been able to get to the point where I can delegate. So like I have a few moms that have helped me with questionnaires and just going through the process with my oldest in other settings. Something that I love is just networking. So like I have a friend, Rachel, that started Spicewood Christian Academy, and I love to tour schools with her. Yeah. And we went to a beautiful conference hosted by the Herzog Foundation, which is an excellent foundation that was created just to support Christian schools to thrive. But that through that network, I can be like, what does your admission process look like? And how are you actually spending quality time with each family to see, like, amongst the chaos and the things that we need to be doing, how do we get down to the nitty gritty to make sure that we are a good fit? Always spending time with the child. Like families that can come, they're like, I can come at this time, but I can't bring my child with me. And it's like, let's reschedule. I want to meet the joy of your life.
I would think that'd be a huge part of the application process.
Yes. Let's see.
I think one of the big things also that I wanted to know is, it seems like today in public schools, they're trying to take parents out of the equation in the education system. And so how does your school differ differ from that and bringing the parents involved into their own child's education?
Sure. And I think it's just letting them know off the bat that we feel that they're the biggest teachers of their children. So we're here to support them. The way that we communicate weekly is through a private Facebook group. I don't love social media, but it's the easiest way to update them weekly, but we upload like 50 pictures per week. And for parents to see the joy on their kids' faces and them interacting with their friends, they feel fully immersed in what they're doing, whether they're in the building or not. Every family for our littlest preschool kids, they have their teacher's phone number, their personal phone. Aww. And so just creating those relationships to know, like, you may text me when there's something comes up, and then holding conferences, whenever they need, and just reassuring parents. These beginning years, parents are so unsure. Is my child on track or not? Do we have a problem, or are we good? Are we average? Right. What can we be doing at home? And that's something that I felt equipped to do as a speech pathologist, constant communication with families and equipping them. These are resources that I love. These are activities, toys, places to go and little things to do with your kids. And the goal is just to build relationships.
Well, it's so easy to get caught up as a parent comparing your child to somebody else's growth and progress. And it's like you have to know where your child is at that part in their life. And
so, Cassidy, how many days a week do the kids go to school?
So in the beginning, we started as 2 days a week. So that was a sweet balance. And I was pregnant with my third. And then the next year, they're like, can we do more? So we were 3 days a week the second year, and this year, the third year, we're 4 days a week.
Wow!
So we're 4 days a week, and we're 8:30 to 1:30 this coming year for our preschoolers, and our K1 goes to 2:00.
Okay.
But then if you have siblings, then we can stay until the 2:00 hour. We're prioritizing a lot of outside time, so we can take your classroom outside for learning or just for their free play time. So a big chunk of their day is outside.
And so if they go to school 4 days a week, is the fifth day still school day, but they do that at home, or is it just?
It's not. That's
okay.
We call that family day.
Okay,
that's family day.
Cool.
For us.
Can I have a family day?
Reserved that.
Yes. Every day is family day.
Can I have family day? I'm going to school now.
Yeah.
I'm going back.
I don't know if you guys have seen, but some school districts have moved to a 4-day week, and I think they're finding that it just prioritizes their teachers, overall health of how much time they're giving, because they'll have a full school day 5 days a week, and then they go home and do more schoolwork, grading, and just communication with families. So
and then that gives an opportunity for the kids to learn in other places, right? So maybe if it's Friday, Saturday, Sunday out of school, on a Friday they can go do some kind of field trip type thing and learn something in life that they're not getting in the school. Because it seems to me like the education part of public school has gotten smaller and smaller and smaller, and all the other stuff that they give them has gotten bigger. So are you seeing that in the world?
Before I forget, I was going to mention that I had sent my oldest and my middle to Hamilton Pool Vineyards. So they do Friday Farm School, and they started right when Edelwise got started. And so I absolutely love their program. And I think they just announced that they're going to do a full week school.
That's great.
So I'm so excited for them, and I love to hear what they're doing. Tammy actually comes and helps with our little garden at Edelwise, and so the kids do a little bit of gardening when the temperature is right.
Oh yeah, which won't be right for 3 or 4 more months.
Right. You asked me about the fill, of a 5-day week. So my oldest is 7, and so when I look at his development, and I'm like, "Are you ready for 5 days a week?" 7:30 to 3:30 and not getting home till later. Mm-hmm. I don't see that he needs it, but every family is different. Every child is different, but I think that with big class sizes, teachers are struggling to fit everything in, just to hone in on those minutes that they're actually spending on reading, writing, math. I know that a lot of fun happens, and they plan so many awesome, projects and collaboratives for the kids. I think at Edelwise, we do have a few of those things. So we have ukulele this year. We did STEM with Snapology. Crystal in Dripping Springs just started an awesome little business, and that's like building and making it move, and
that's great.
All those new concepts that kids are loving. So we provide a few of those extracurriculars, and then just know that a lot of the families have that extra time. If they're gone at 2, they can go to their after school things and not feel like then it's dinner, then it's bedtime. So creating that space for quality time for families.
And is your school, I mean, does it fall under the charter kind of umbrella in Texas? And not that this is like a big woo, but do you guys have to follow TEKS or have to follow anything that TEA?
That's a really good question.
What's TEKS?
It's Texas Education, Knowledge, and Skills.
Yes.
And it's like the curriculum that you have to follow, the benchmarks, right, that you have to follow.
Yes. So this was the first year that we added elementary. So we had kindergarten in first, and I had a certified teacher that has years of experience. So we kind of played around with picking and choosing, being that we had a shorter school day and Fridays off. And so we were able to meet all of the developmental objectives, but we don't have to follow TEKS. So we're our private school, but starting out, we were really just daycare age, which I don't love calling it a daycare, but we are licensed through the state of Texas. And so they're looking at safety. They're looking at hours that we're together. They're looking at whether we have sleep time or not. So we're there's definitely, developmental norms that we're following for fine motor, gross motor, language skills, social skills, all of the things that we want for the littlest ones. But we're a private school, and a new word that I learned, everything is vocab, right? It's like, what is this called? When people are like, what is it that you do here?
Yeah.
I met some women that were on the board of Charlotte Mason Institute at that conference through Herzog Foundation, and they taught me the word tutorial. So there's co-op, which is mostly parents teaching, taking turns teaching. So I'm like, we're not a co-op. So it's a tutorial. So it's parents hiring a teacher and really designing that together. So
Okay, that makes sense.
That's how education started in this country. 150 years ago, it would be a small town of a couple hundred people, and they would all get together and pool some money and bring in a teacher, and they'd have a one-room schoolroom, and all the parents had input on what the kids were learning.
You watch too much Little House on the Prairie.
It's exactly what I'm doing. But I mean, that's how education started in this country. Now that was public education then, because the public funded it in this little town. But now, gosh, it's become this huge, giant.
You and I were talking yesterday about the privately social agendas. It's not necessarily about the education anymore. It's about pushing whatever social du jour, agenda is on these baby impressionable minds. And so, as a parent, you have a right to be able to protect your kiddo. And
I actually think it's not a right. I think you have a responsibility.
Well, a right and a responsibility.
But I'm saying, I think there's been, we just mentioned it a little bit ago, there have been parents that have abdicated that responsibility to educate their kids to this huge public machine that is not always necessarily teaching them stuff that aligns with their family values.
Absolutely.
So addressing that is the reason you started Edelwise, was to address that.
I think that I didn't even know it yet, but it's what pushes us forward, right? And things that are happening, they're pretty unbelievable when you hear it, and you're like, that can't be.
Michelle and I have this conversation all the time. She'll tell me something, and I'll go, Michelle, that's
not true.
That's not, that's some kind of spoof. And then she'll show me a video of it actually happening, and I was like, I cannot believe that exists in this country, but it does. There are things that are happening with our kids that are abhorrent, but it's happening.
It's a heaviness and it's a burden, and but God is calling us to it right now. And His design and His desire for our families is His will and His ways. And so when we open the Bible and we're reminded of, what are we doing here? What is our responsibility as parents? And I'll never apologize for being overprotective or advocating for my children and being picky, I guess.
That's the way I parented, for sure. And something occurred to me when you were saying that you didn't realize that was the path you were on. Sometimes God yells at you, and sometimes He whispers, and the whisper sometimes can be a lot louder than what you think. And
the chatter is so loud from culture right now. It's like, aren't you going to do what everybody else is doing? And it normally doesn't feel good to do the opposite of what everybody else is doing, but it feels pretty good.
That's kind of how I live my life. If they say don't, I'm like, why?
God,
question. Why? Why don't you want me to do this? And I just kind of go around the back door and do it anyways.
And she does. She definitely does. Cassidy, do you think there's a movement in this country to use a word? I guess it's hate on Christians or look down on Christians. And do you feel like that's going on?
Absolutely, but I don't feel like it's a new phenomenon. I think that it can feel new just because of the cycle of what's being brought to our attention. Like right now in the month of June, how can you not be blinded?
Right.
So you just stay on course, right? We're teaching our kids the narrow path. We can take the wide path, but we're looking for the narrow one.
Right. Well,
wow.
You mentioned that you don't like social media, and it's funny because I get on social media mostly for work, but also I get a lot of my view of the world from that.
Sure.
And it's not good. And so if you stay off social media, then your world becomes good or bad. It becomes smaller. It's just
right.
what you are impacting today, right? The kids that you're impacting. It's not all the other stuff going on in
yes,
other parts of the world.
It's distraction for sure, and you have almost you feel lighter without reading the input of the world.
Yeah, I've gone on a couple times. I've not looked at social media for like a week, and it's true. You have a better outlook on life. It is an important part of business, but sometimes I wonder.
I agree. That's what I tell.
If it's worth
It's
the
noise. It can be noise. I saw a quote the other day from an LA Dodger, Trevor Williams, and they're trying to cancel him. He's gotten a lot of hate for it, and said it has to be said. We cannot stand idly by while our Lord gets mocked. And I think that it's amazing for somebody of his caliber of talent to speak out publicly, and people get crucified for it. But the other thing I heard or I saw where our government's saying, well, they're all our children. No, they're not. They're my children.
Goodness.
They're my children.
Isn't that a scary thing
feel
for
a little cuckoo?
Yeah. That's for having somebody from the federal government or state government say that about your kids. That's completely un-American.
Yeah, you get your mama bear, hat on, and like, I will fight you.
It's easy to get really fiery inside, and I know that like I look back, what's God calling to me, calling me to right now? And it's in my home, in my marriage. And so it's like with social media, it's like, this is taking my time away from my husband, and I have very few hours together. It's like my children, I need to be present. I should not be scrolling my phone because that's what they're watching.
Yeah.
It's all
you're teaching
all
your
caught.
kids to do that. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. That I've fallen victim to that.
My kids taught me how to do that.
I was going to say, they got you on TikTok.
That's right. My kids taught me how to do it.
How old are your kids again?
22, 24, and 27. So, yeah.
She had
are you in the buddy stage? Are they your friends right now?
Oh, yeah, my daughter. I'm surprised she hasn't called me again. But yeah, I'm her best friend.
Aww.
Yeah, I'm her best friend. She hated me when she was a teenager. Probably tried to poison me a couple of times. But
that would explain a lot, actually.
This is what I have to look forward to.
No, she's. You know what? I wanted to mention your kids too. Your children have just this old Hollywood style. Their names: Clark, Faye, and Hugh.
Oh, that's
I just love it.
That.
I love the kind of reverting back to just this just kind of beautiful time. What we thought. I mean, there were some yucky things that happened, but their names are just amazing.
Thank you so much.
Where are these family names or
no? So Clark is Clark Ernest. So my grandfather is Ernest. But when I found out I was pregnant, we were in Chicago and we were going to a baseball game, and there was signs that said Clark. Like every street sign said Clark, and then some of them said Murphy, and we loved both of the names. Murphy was on my husband's side, familial name. Loved Clark right away. There was no second name. Faye was going to be Murphy.
That was my grandmother's name, was Faye.
Really?
Yeah, Faye.
She's such a Faye. So I love names that could be either. And thank God we named her Faye because she is just so feminine. Wears her jewelry constantly.
That's great.
Clark is such an old soul, and Hugh the third, he's just hilarious. Like the third, he's just constantly like, "How can I be a part?"
Yeah,
Look
it's
at me,
funny because those names now are very unique, right? But 50 years ago, those were probably just as popular as Steve and Michelle. Yeah, I mean,
sure.
it's but so I love that because I always think when when one of your kids calls up somebody, which they probably won't ever do, but they'll say, hey, it's Hugh. They won't have to say, hey, it's Hugh Sullivan, because how many Hughs are going to be out there? So how many Clarks? So.
Yes, I experienced that. Like when I was at Mazama and there was another Cassidy that took my coffee apparently, and she took a sip. She's like, I'm so sorry. There's never another Cassidy. Like, well, now we know. We live in the same town and we'll check our coffees.
And now you're friends, right? You're meeting her next week for coffee.
Yeah.
Well, Tate, when I was naming Tate, my mother was like, why are you coming up with all these soap opera names? And like nobody else was named Tate, but they call him Tape. Like they'll think his name is Tape or Kate. But I call him Tater Tot. So that's how I differentiate
That was the only reason, wasn't it?
It was all about, I was probably craving tater tots at the time.
Wasn't there a really sweet movie I remember watching a ton when I was younger?
Tate Donovan?
Little boy Tate and his mom.
Oh, I'm going to have to look it up now.
And she will. She'll look it up.
I'll look beep, bop, boop.
Yeah. I want to ask you some business parts of opening this school.
Whew.
Yeah. That was what I wanted to get to. Yeah. How hard was it to start a private school in Texas?
Yes. So in the beginning, we were functioning, under my speech pathology license. I'm like, I have, the ability to do this. And we're a social skills group. Mm-hmm. Essentially, our goal is social skills for these little kids. And then I went through the ringer with licensing, and once it mellowed out, I was like, okay, I can do this. I just felt like I was learning something entirely new, like a 500-page document that I'm not the director of a school yet. I'm a speech pathologist. And so just really bringing those together and learning, what is necessary in order to cover these minimum standards is what they call them. Other than that, it's really like looking at bookkeeping and finances. We have worked hard I think this will be the third time that we apply to be a 501c3 nonprofit. We did it ourselves the first time, and we did the short form instead of the long form. And then we've used LegalZoom, and that fell through. We've used them for other services, and everything went fine, but it hasn't gone well. And so now we're just looking for someone privately to really support us with all the documents needed.
So there is a lot of documentation you need to get this set up and approved by the state?
Absolutely. And what's been wonderful about that Herzog Foundation that I was talking about, in another name besides tutorial is micro school. So a lot of these schools are being called little micro schools. But they started a program called School Box, and it walks you through.
Oh, nice.
So it was kind of created more recently, but I'm going back and following those steps to make sure that everything is lined up in order to thrive in the future.
And your school goes to second, third grade?
Right now it's first. So last year we added kindergarten in first, and our goal this year was to actually go up to fourth grade on the property that we're at. I'm a tenant, so I don't own the property, but there is extra space. And so we were looking at buying those cabins that you can kind of design yourself and creating more classrooms there. We're just in the very beginning stages. We're going to have our first fundraiser in the spring of 2024. So I'm spread super thin right now with the hats that I wear, but I feel really confident in this coming year that I'll be able to delegate these big things that we want as parents in our community for Edelwise to continue to grow.
I think it's needed, much needed right now, especially with the overcrowding of the schools that's kind of taking place right now here in Dripping Springs. And it would sound very attractive if I was a young parent and wanting to have my child in a school where it would definitely align with my beliefs and the skill set. What is some fun things that you get to do? Do you get to go on field trips and stuff?
We don't do field trips because the transportation is a whole nother level. But we're thinking about doing that since we don't have Friday school, finding a parent that wants to lead that because they do want to hang. And so picking somewhere where we can all drive individually and meet up there and learn something new on Fridays. The fun things that we do, oh my gosh. I mean, I feel
every day
like
is fun.
Every day is fun. We do worship every morning and we do have one TV. So the reason that the TV gets used is for worship, if we're showing a quick video about like science or something. But literally the fun is just my community of teachers and knowing that we get to love on these kids. Like we sing all day, we read books. The kids are so into it when they just discover new things. It's just so sweet to watch their little peer relationships grow. How are you taking care of these
great teachers?
That's a good question. My goal is that they know that I'm constantly there for them. If there's something that comes up, whether it's with a child or a parent, I have their back. I want
That's
to.
delicate though, isn't it? So you have their back. Sometimes they make a mistake, but you still back them up. Because I'm the leader of our business.
Yes.
I never throw them under the bus. I defend them, but then we have tough conversations after. Is that how you handle that?
Absolutely.
Is he looking at me when he said that?
I was.
Is that what he was
completely
looking at? He was
at
like
you,
side
Michelle.
eye? Did you just do a little side eye?
No, I was looking straight at you.
And I think when we were talking about the admission process, that's something that I want to hear too. Like, how does, even in an interview with a teacher, how do you deal with conflict? We're all broken, and we bring our brokenness to our relationships, whether it's with a family and you're spending a lot of time with their child. I don't expect perfection. I am learning every day as I go. And so being able to have those conversations where they know, like, I'm not going to throw them under the bus, like you said, and having just the patience and the grace that they give me every day, it's reciprocal. So
I think that's super important. It always bothers me when I see somebody in a position of authority or power not supporting the people that are underneath them that rely on that, for you to back them up.
Right. I don't think that creates longevity of the model. You're going to lose those people.
That's true. That's true. You mentioned in your bio about building community with other mamas. How do you do that?
So we so many different ways. I love connecting people. So even when we moved here, it was like getting on the Headwaters page and saying like, hey, let's meet on Friday at the park. Coming from California, that was something that I'll never forget. I had a little mama baby group. So when all of our first babies turned 6 weeks, all of our kids were within like 2 weeks of each other being born. And so we were going through the exact same things. And that was extremely powerful just for being in the postpartum period and knowing that we weren't alone. And so moms they need each other. No matter whether we're like meeting at Alchemy now, or it just like has a little sweet kid spot, or the library, being at someone's house. I think just holding space for each other and making it a priority can just really prioritize your self-care.
Oh, yeah.
And so I need it just as much as they do. So whenever I have the chance to create that time, it's something that I love.
That's great.
I remember being in that season of my life and just really leaning on people that have done it before. And you're right. It just you're like, oh my gosh, I'm the only person that's going through this. And you have this screaming baby.
Like, I'm not from experience, but you feel like nobody's ever done it before, and it's so hard. And how are you going to get through it? So talking with somebody that's been there that says you will get through it, it's very powerful.
I look back and I was 25 years old when I had Logan. I literally was making it up as I went along, and I was still just.
I thought you were younger than that.
No, I wasn't. Yeah, I was 13.
I was 13.
Yes, I was 13. But it was hard. You're trying as a young woman. You're trying to navigate. Who am I supposed to be? I'm this mom, and I'm supposed to have this perfect house and have dinner and a perfect wife and dinner, and then this child won't stop crying. I want to put it in the dishwasher, and it's not.
Yeah, there's just huge. Endless benefits to community. That's what God wants for us, right? So like, even outside of having friends with kids the same age, having friends with kids that are older than us. A friend and I were talking about that last night. How do we walk through this season if we've all never done it before? So, looking to your church community or your neighborhood, find people that you can trust when it comes to their counsel, right? Over your marriage, over your parenting, over, your workspace. So,
well, how do you find space for just yourself without the children involved? Like what does that look like? What does a day look like with no kids, no husband? I used to walk around aimlessly around Walmart because
no kids, no husband.
Yeah, no kids, no husband.
And do you need a nap?
Oh my gosh.
Sleeping in the car.
So I'm a night owl. My dad's a night owl too. And I remember just staying up super late and watching movies with him, but he did move to this area. And so I think, coming together with your spouse and saying we need to find childcare that we trust so that we can pour into each other.
Sure.
And just giving yourself the permission to say, I'm going to get a babysitter and it is just for me.
Yep.
And even if I have no plans, I'm not going to go shop on Mercer. I told myself I wouldn't do that. No. Sitting, drinking coffee, just being outside, going for a walk. I think that's something that I want to focus on for the rest of 2023. It's just moving my body.
You have to be very purposeful about it though. Otherwise it falls away. Yeah. Other things get in the way.
I used to tell my husband that you do not babysit your own children. You're not babysitting your own children.
Yes.
Yeah. These are your children too.
Whew.
Yeah. Bye.
Mind blown.
Bye.
Yeah.
You're not
Well, Cassidy, you mentioned that your husband works from home and has
Yes.
worked from home for a while. How does he stay focused on work with 3 small kids running around the house?
That is such a good question. He is, he's so wonderful in the way that he will walk away from his work no matter what. I think part of finding balance for me is learning to compartmentalize, and I need to also silence my phone. That's something that I don't do yet that I feel like everybody else is doing. I want to be available for the people that need me, but I also know that that's going to be extremely draining over the years. But my husband is so intentional about pausing, and he knows that this time just goes by so quickly. And so he told my son today, he's going to do flag football in the fall. And he's like, whenever you want to play catch, if I'm not on a call, I will stop what I'm doing and we'll do it. But we've talked about, going to Fuse and maybe getting an office just because we have a big barn door that we put in our house and it does nothing for the sound. And so we don't have a baby anymore. So there is no more screaming, but he'll let me know if there's a specific time of day where he's like, can't be in the house. So yeah.
It's great to hear that he has already figured out how fast this time goes by, because a lot of us figured it out when it was too late.
Absolutely.
And I was guilty of that when I was, building this real estate business. It was 16-hour days, and and kids would walk in and go, "Hey, Dad, can we go shoot the BB gun or throw a ball?" And I go, I can't do that right now. And that's time missed. So it's great that he realizes that.
Yes. And our to-do lists that are so long, they feel like, well, if I don't do it right now, when am I going to do it?
That's right. That's right.
What do you have planned for the future for the school?
For myself or for Edelwise?
For both. Tell us about both.
I'm just trusting God right now. Everything changes so quickly. And I think even just following the economy, like seeing with camps right now, we had 6 camps planned and we had enough space for, 4 different groups of kids age-wise. And I think people are really keeping their kids home this summer. They're trying to cut back. But I'm just trusting, we have a lot of new teachers. And so it can feel like a new season coming into this school year, but I know what we're doing is good and it's glorifying God, and that we're going to keep doing it. I don't know. I can't, predict exactly the growth year to year. For my family, this will be the first year that Clark, my oldest, we're still figuring out where he's going to go next year. And I really want to be involved in what his education looks like. So he'll be going into 2nd grade. And then I have Faye. She's doing pre-K. She has a later birthday. And then Hugh will be joining us in the 2-year-old class. So we'll still be together.
Do you think your oldest will go to a public school or a private school?
We have applied. So we were super late to the game. So I don't know if you guys have seen, but when you want to go to a specific school, you need to apply like the November before. And so we thought that we would be pushing up to 2nd grade next year. And so we're extremely behind, but we're waiting to hear from a few schools in the next few weeks to see what God has in store for him.
My understanding is that private schools and small schools like yourself people are taking their kids out of public school, and there's more kids that want to be in those types of schools now than ever before.
Very much so. And I think if families have the opportunity, moms are really jumping in, and dads, to homeschooling and seeing what that looks like for their families. And,
homeschool doesn't look like the way it used to. There is a community of homeschoolers, and Dripping Springs is a perfect location for it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, and they used to say, well, if you homeschool your kids, they don't get any socialization, but actually it's the opposite. I think some of the kids that are homeschooled that meet with other homeschoolers, their socialization, there's a lot less drama, and it's actually more fulfilling for them to get together with those other like-minded individuals.
Yeah, there's so much life happening. One of the schools that we're applying to in the area, their model is like half at home and half at school. And so they actually charted out, like in a typical public school week or year, how much time are these kids in their seat at school versus how much they're at home. And visually, it just like was mind blowing to see, like, these are the stages that we want to build relationships with our kids so that when they leave our home, what foundation have you laid? And so I feel like with homeschooling, it can be whatever you want it to be. And choosing, we were talking about curriculum a little bit earlier, but partnering with other moms. There's so many programs now that moms have created for homeschooling so that you don't have to just wing it.
Oh, yeah.
and a lot of unlearning. So when you're taking your kids out of public school,
Yes.
it's like, I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, let's spend 6 months just not knowing what we're doing and being together and learning each other, because you become your child's first teacher. So figuring out how your child learns is going to be really impactful for the things that you choose to do with them.
And that's the only way to be in charge of who they are as individuals when they grow up. That's the only way you can control that.
That was really eye-opening for me, because I homeschooled my 3 kids for about 2-3 months, give or take, when we left South Austin and we came here to Dripping. And it was just, our house was being built. And you talk about learning their learning styles.
Yes.
And when we put them back here in Dripping Springs, it was so beneficial for them and for me, because when I'm talking to the teacher and I know what my oldest needed versus what my youngest needed was totally different, totally different. And so I felt like I could more advocate for them.
Absolutely.
Versus just kind of trusting what the teacher said. And it's like, oh yeah, well, yeah, I know she's mouthy.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you noticed.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, Cassidy, this has been a lot of fun.
Thank you so much.
One of the things I've discovered in running this podcast is how curious I am. And this is something I've always wondered about. How do you set up a school? What calls you to do that? And you've answered a lot of our questions.
I'm so glad. Yeah, this has been really fun to sit with you guys. I love what you're doing here in Dripping Springs and sharing all the different businesses that I get to learn about too when I listen.
Yeah. Well, trust us, it's been a lot of fun for us. And we got to meet great people like
Yes. Thank you so much.
Thank
We
you.
are very excited and just can't wait to see how this school just continues to grow.
I love it. Me too.
This show has been brought to you in part by the real estate pros at the Mallett Integrity Team. When you're looking to buy or sell, you need them on your side. Why settle for less when you can have real estate done right? Give them a call at 512-829-2062 or get more info at mallettintegrityteam.com.
You know you like us, so go now to Apple Podcasts or Spotify and leave us a review. Why don't you? We love your feedback and comments. Email us at malletandmichelle@gmail.com.
Thanks for putting up with us.